Okay, welcome everybody. Today is December 12th, 2019. This is the Upper Dublin School District Operations Committee, and I'll call the meeting to order. We have no presentations tonight. We have an announcement from the school board first, from our new president, Amy Franczyk.
Thank you, Mr. Sirota. We have a brief announcement tonight about the meeting format and committee structure for this evening. As announced previous to the meeting, we will be having two separate meetings tonight, an operations committee and a finance committee meeting in that order. The committee structure has changed since the reorganization meeting. Tonight's committees will actually consist of the same people. So our committee members are Chair, Mr. Mark Sirota, and other members, myself, also Stan Ropsky, who could not be here this evening, and our new member, Mike Henderson. That will serve for tonight and going forward. On Monday evening at our legislative meeting, we will talk further about committee structures and any future changes to meeting schedules and formats. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Leckman, are there any announcements from the administration?
There are no other announcements.
Okay, thank you. We have minutes from our November meeting. If anyone who was a member of that committee at the time has has changes, please get them to Brooke, and they'll be on Monday night's agenda. So let's start right in with the Sandy Run Middle School update. Bob?
Yes, tonight for the update, I asked Zach Zazo, from, I hope I said that right, from Dewey Engineers. He's our project manager who's on site at all times during this construction. Asked Zach to provide the update tonight. He can give probably some better insight, some of the allowances we've been using and where we stand.
Good evening. Again, Zach Zazo with Dewey Engineering, the on-site project manager. Thank you for having me. Excited about this project. To start with, if any of you have had construction experience before, you know that getting out of the ground is actually one of the hardest parts of the project. And that's currently the stage that we're in right now. I am pleased to say that the Widening road widening has been completed. That sidewalk is complete, and it has the grass and mulch next to it, so that is currently safe for public and student use. The annex building, if any of you have driven by, will notice that that is completely gone. And I'm pleased to report that the entire building pad for all sections of the new building in its entirety, the building pad has been completed. Top of that, we've started the concrete footings for the 3-story classroom addition. And earlier last week, the mason has actually started to lay some concrete masonry units. So we have walls that are very low, but they have started. So we've got continuous meetings with the plumbers, with the electricians. All of those trades have already started their rough-in in the building pad. The submittals, which are everything that goes into the new building, from the carpet to the molding, ceiling, tiles, lights, all that stuff is well underway and getting approved. The coordination drawings, we do those now actually we build the entire building in a 3D model first. And we have input from all the mechanical, electrical, and the plumbing trades and the steel installer. So everybody gets to put some insight and feedback into those drawings so that when we actually start, the building comes out of the ground, there's no confusion. Everybody knows where they need to be in the ceiling spaces for their ductwork, pipe work, that type. So that is well underway, and I'm pleased to report that the entire first floor for Area A has already been coordinated. So those meetings will continue. Hopefully, we've got a pleasant winter and we can continue working. We never know what the winter has in store, but at the earliest, you could see structural steel by the end of February. That's assuming we get excellent weather throughout the. So we are well underway and we are on track. But as I stated, getting out of the ground is the hardest part, and the geology in this area, as I put in your board packet, there's a letter in there that I wrote to Mr. Lester, and then at the end of the board packet where I have that, what I'm going to call a dashboard, there's a little note there. The on-site soils for this area with the karst topography that you have down here does pose a constant challenge. It's a bad word, sinkhole. We've already encountered one, and we repaired it the same day. So, and we have encountered quite a bit of unsuitable, which we're going to call unstable soil within that building pad. So we've taken out over 2,000 yards of material, and we brought in structural fill that we're putting the building pad on. So there is upwards of $77,000 that I would recommend writing a change order for at this point. We did anticipate some of this. The contractor in the unit price in the contract gave us a great number. It's $30 a cubic yard. If you've ever gotten a scoop full of mulch, that's about a yard. He's only charging us $30 to remove and replace. Typically, you see $100 to $150 a cubic yard for soil. So they gave us a great number knowing that we were going to be against this hurdle. But as I stated, the building pad's done. I'm not anticipating any more change orders for soils exchange within the building pad. Of course, we don't have the exterior footings all dug yet, but that's a very small portion as to what we just encountered. So there may be some minimal, at which point we could take that out of allowance. And then your auditorium is a pretty steep slope. So we may encounter some additional unsuitable soils down there, but again, it was just going to be a small amount compared to what we encountered to get that entire building pad up.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the committee? All right, so the change order we have on the agenda, I think, we have a change order for that item here as a separate item? No, we don't. So,
Yeah, we do have the memo about the unsuitable soils. Zach's in the process right now of just finalizing the numbers. The memo he wrote, he was very close, but we're just getting the exact number from the contractor that was pulled out. So we expect this number to be right in that $77,000 range that's on the memo. We will have the final change order in hand tomorrow for Monday's meeting.
okay, so it'll be, we'll see that on Monday's agenda.
Yes, we did. I did not have the numbers on Friday when Mr. Lester put our packet together, but this week we do have the numbers finalized, and that change order will get written tomorrow, and it was actually $74,000 and some change, so it's a little less than what I had anticipated.
Great, and this, so, you know, we have some smaller credits also on the agenda, but net this impacts our $2 million, is that where you plan to take this out of, or?
So I'll give a quick update on the budget document. There were two items that I just wanted to mention on the budget document that I actually put together. That 77,000 or the 74 and change is not reflected in that yet. So as we finalize change orders and approve it, that's when it goes into the budget document. Two things that I did change on this budget document, and to answer your question, Mr. Sirota, is you'll notice that there's now an interest line item on the, almost on the bottom there. So what I've included in is the interest income that we've earned on all of our bond proceeds to date. So you can see the interest earned has been about $240,000. And then the other thing that I added on here is on the actual contingency line item. So you'll see about a negative $190,000 number there. And what that basically represents is the difference between our current budget and the original budget, which has increased about $50,000, again, before the $74,000 number. And then the positive that we've received from the interest income of about $240,000. So really, right now, I'm gonna track that against the contingency and say we're about $190,000 to the good at this point with the interest income that we've earned. Now, again, when we add the 74 against that, it'll come down, but that's where we're at right now as far as the project budget goes.
Right, and in the past, we've had a couple of small positive change orders as well, and these couple small positive change orders tonight as well. Right,
Correct.
so that's all gonna add up into the contingency line.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, any other comments or questions? All right, thank you, Zach. Thank you very much for the update.
Reason to stick around?
That's not necessary. If you're always welcome to, but we understand completely if
appreciate
you
it. Okay.
would like to go home.
Thank you. We'll see you soon.
All right, so next up, we have the change order for Ann Lynch.
Yes, we're working on the closeout of some of the projects. Ann Lynch had the job to put in a new switchgear, because all the power for the original, for the annex and the main building ran through the annex. We had to put the new transformer in and relocate power, relocate our fiber optics, add telephone poles to get around the work site. So A and Lynch had that contract. This is a wrap-up change order. We had allowances that were not used, so the amount was $22,914.48 in unused allowances that we are getting back as part of a change order for this job.
Okay, any comments or questions? All right, so we'll move that one forward to Monday night, and we have the next change order for Walter Brucker.
Yes, Walter Brucker did our ADA upgrades that we need to make at Sandy Run over the summer. And again, this was a change order wrapping up our allowances that we did not use. So this change order was giving back to us $25,548.
Okay, and just to clarify, I probably misspoke earlier. This one does not go into the contingency line, right? Because this is not related to the new building, or will it still?
No, this was not part. No, I think we did this at operations last year.
That's my recollection. Okay, so with that clarification, any other comments or questions? Okay, so we'll move that one forward to Monday night. Next up, building permit for the pole barn.
Yes, pole barn, we've been talking about that.
You may need to give a little background for the new members.
The better part of a year. So the background of this building, the administration property being an old farm, we had several accessory buildings, small garages, barns on the property when it was purchased. I think over the past 10 years, 5 buildings have been torn down because they were in disrepair. The latest we tore down in 2018. It was a lean-to building near the Mackinac soccer fields. It was a lot of graffiti and a lot of rot. We tried to save it. The costs were coming in too high to maintain that structure. So it actually came in over $100,000 to repair that building. So we started looking elsewhere, and we decided to go with a pole barn replacement instead. Pole barn's very cheap. Will have the same look as the other buildings, the garage and the other storage buildings on the site, so it'll match the farm look that the property has. We went out to receive pricing for that, and Shirk Pole Barns was who we were going with. They've done work in the township before. So we set in motion to put this building in place. Going through the whole permit process with the township. After I submitted the permit was denied. The reason they came back was zoning. The administration property is zoned residential. Any outbuildings it cannot exceed 600 square feet. We were looking at a 900 square foot building. The one we tore down was probably closer to 1,800 square feet. But we didn't want to exceed the 1,000 square foot mark because then it would become a building requiring sprinklers. This is just a plain storage building. There's no electric, no heat. So adding a sprinkler system would have doubled the cost of the building. We would have had to get all the utilities in there. It just didn't make sense for what our needs were. So I met with the zoning officer from the township, and they tried to work with us. We tried to find any loophole. We couldn't find any that the solicitors would approve of. So we need to apply for a zoning variance to go over the 600 square feet. And we do have several options. You could reduce the size of the building to under square feet, which would be a much smaller storage building. To stay at the 900 square feet, which would be great for storing some of our equipment in. Our tractors, our plows would be in there during the winter, and our lawn mowing equipment. After we're finished grass cutting season, we'll store that away for the remainder of the seasons. To do this, we have to go through a zoning hearing, variance hearing. We would need to, because we're not a residence, we're institutional, we would have to pay a $1,500 zoning hearing fee to the township to appear in front of the zoning board to plead our case. Not expecting any difficulties with getting the zoning passed, being that we are smaller than it was there, but it is the formalities that we're being asked to go through. I did mention we do have the right to have our solicitor present. In fact, for commercial properties, it's suggested that they be there, but I don't think it's as necessary in this case. Again, it's a very small building. I think it's a very easy case that we're just held by the writing of the ordinance itself. It doesn't make sense in our case, so I don't think we'll have any difficulty. So really what we're looking at, do we want to spend the additional $1,500 to go and get a variance to build the additional 300 square foot?
So to clarify, I think I hear you asking for our opinion. Do you actually need board action on this item if we choose to do that?
Yeah, more we're just notifying, just
Okay.
more opinion to make sure that you're on board with what we want to do.
Okay, so comments or questions? Oh, Teacher?
I would just say, given how long it's taken to get this to happen, whatever you think will resolve the situation best, I am in favor of.
Is this location that you're proposing, is it exact same as where you tore down the original?
Yes.
And isn't there a grandfather rule then that applies?
No, I did ask about that. This is sitting on the same piece of land, the same exact spot that the existing building was torn down. It actually worked out. The old building, we had the foundations dug out and they filled it with crushed stone, which makes the great base for us to build the new building on. So we're going on the same footprint. What was explained to me is when you remove a non-conforming building from the property, it doesn't give you automatically the right to put another non-conforming building in its place. If this wasn't zoned residential, we wouldn't have this issue, but the entire Maple Glen school property, admin property, was one parcel and it was all zoned residential.
Does it then make sense to apply for a change in that zoning?
I was actually thinking the same thing, and then I'm thinking, well, this property and Fort Washington is all zoned residential, and I don't know what else we have.
I think the fees would be quite significant.
Yeah.
Then we would be having our solicitor involved to draft the paperwork, the zoning variance, notifications. I think it would be quite more expensive to do.
Anything, Mike? All right, so my feeling is we should go up to the 900 or 1,000. You know, I don't think we should exceed 1,000 as we've discussed in the past because of the utility question, but I don't anticipate any challenge in the zoning board, and I think we should go ahead and apply for this variance. Sounds like I see nodding around the room, so yeah. Okay, anything? Yep. Okay.
Could we build two 600 properties?
Yes. I don't see it as being an issue. We may just incur some more engineering fees, but that is actually a possibility.
You probably put two 600s on the existing
Yes.
crushed stone building pad even. That's actually a pretty interesting idea. All right, so however you want to proceed with that is fine. All right, next up is the capital plan outlook, Andy. Bob?
Okay, this is just an update of where we're at for this year and what we're looking to do next year. Nothing's set in stone yet. We're just coming up with our ideas and just wanted to present them so you have an idea of the direction we're looking for and the potential costs down the road out of our capital fund. Sorry, this was late getting. We didn't have time to, we're waiting for too many answers back in order to get this on the board packet last week. Some of the numbers we weren't able to finalize till yesterday evening. Anything for 2009 I have highlighted. There are projects that have been completed already and paid for out of the fund. If we go down, the major ones for this year was the windows, the replacement windows at Fort Washington Elementary. It was a $1.3 million worth of work this year that we completed. And that includes purchasing all the windows for the rest of the building that we're going to be installing next year. The material is on site being stored, so we have everything. So the material number is in that. That's why this year is so much higher than next year. And only about 50% of the windows have been installed. And then we did the window air conditioners this year. That was the other projects that were being closed out. The breakdown was roughly $215,000 for Fort Washington, $300,000 for Jarretttown. That included the new electric service that we needed to do to upgrade the electric panels there. And Thomas Fitzwater, we had enough electric panel space available, so that cost us much less. That was $100,000. The other projects we're looking to complete this year, as we just talked about, the The new pole barn, that's $17,525. We still have that number in, hoping to get this built by the end of this fiscal year. And then we're going out to bid, I mentioned before, of issues with Fort Washington's roof. Actually pulling away from the insulation. It needs to be re-secured down to the decking. This is a very rough number. We really just had design drawings, just reviewed them for the first time today. This is really a placeholder. I don't expect the number to be this high, but I think it's a good spot to place the job at in case we come up with some unknowns at this time. Just finishing up the final design. The bid for that job, we're going to advertise next week. There will be 3 weeks of advertising, and bids will be due January 22nd. We hope to present all the bids to the Operations Committee on the 23rd, and on the 27th, bring it to the full board for a vote, and that'll be for the repairs. For next summer, we're looking at doing, well, the one given is the Fort Washington windows. So we need another $388,000 out of the capital fund to finish the window installation project. But then looking at other projects, I'll start from the top down. Next year, we're really looking at parking lots. The paving in our parking areas is really coming apart. We just finished putting some patches in today just to fill some of the potholes, but 3 older elementary schools, we're at the point where we need to mill the parking areas and repave. We're looking $200,000 for Fort Washington for their parking area. Also throwing about $20,000 worth of concrete work, because if I'm going to be digging up the pavement work, I need to replace the curbing that's bad alongside. We also had, for Jarretttown, about $240,000 for that entire rear parking lot we were looking at. But also wanted to bring up $60,000 for a walkway. We've talked about the township had grants. They're going to start adding drainage and sidewalk along Lime Kiln Pike, and we need somewhere, once the people get to Jarretttown, where to go. We're actually looking, instead of putting a concrete sidewalk along the road, we're looking at doing a blacktop pathway that kind of winds through the property. You can see where there is an existing path that's only about 1 foot wide. We would, of course, make it wider, probably the width of a roller, 4 to 6 feet wide, somewhere in that area where the kids could ride bicycles, easy to walk down. The importance of following the existing path that we have now is it keeps us out of the right-of-way for PennDOT, so we can have more say what we do with our sidewalk. It wouldn't have to be concrete. We can do it in blacktop. We can make it enough that, if we want to run a plow down during the winter, we could do that. Very similar. It won't be as wide as the paving that's being done right now along Virginia Drive, Virginia and Susquehanna. They put a similar pathway down. Theirs is much wider. We don't need anything that wide. There was a number, we had some preliminary estimates, talked to some of the paving contractors, what they would expect this number to come in if we bid it. Also, threw some Maple Glen projects in this year. We had some windows that are starting to delaminate. If you look through some of the windows, it's very opaque, a lot of condensation built up between the glass. We put a placeholder in for $40,000 to start looking at those windows. But the other big one is to replace the sprinkler heads. This is something we've talked about in the past. It's been delayed. The sprinkler heads in that building were under a recall many years ago that the recall was not taken advantage of. So we're on the hook to make this replacement. But we're also starting to deal with sprinkler heads that are 20 years old. So it is time to start replacing all the heads. Right now, that is currently being designed by the engineer. We have Vervarelli engineers working on that, so that should be ready for bid, I'd say, in another month, with some options that we have that we could take with that job. I'm comfortable with that $100,000 number right now. When this project started, we contacted some sprinkler companies, came in, looked at our drawings, looked at the building, and gave us some preliminary estimates that were under this number. So I think that's a good placeholder for that. And Thomas Fitzwater needs some parking lot repairs as well. But their lot's much smaller, so we're only looking about $100,000. We also did a lot of the paving in the rear of Thomas Fitzwater when we did the office upgrades and the electric upgrades, since they had to dig up that part of that parking lot to run the conduits anyway. So half the rear parking lot was already done.
Thank you. Comments or questions? Art.
For the paving that we're doing, that will also involve township inspections and...
Yes. We'd have to have Well, I have to double check that. Some will require, others will not. The concrete work normally does the curbing, the siding. Milling and paving is not, milling and existing parking lot and paving is not as intense. We may not.
The other observation I have is the air conditioning. The 3 elementary schools, I think, came in at 615, which is very good compared to our discussions that we had last year in terms of what we were anticipating. I just wanted to congratulate, and thank the administration for really following up. And when I was in the building, especially at Fort Washington, the company that was installing the air conditioning units, the local company, were very impressive, and they really cared about their work. And I'm glad that we ended up using a local firm to do that. Who was that?
Hirschberg Mechanical.
Hirschberg, yeah. They did a great job.
Their office used to be in Upper Dublin. The office has since moved, but the family is still
here,
local to
yeah.
Upper Dublin. They've been providing us excellent service, and we've been using them for other projects as well with the service. And they're also now an approved state contractor under CoStars.
Great. The only other item is over at Eastern, we did some significant paving in our parking lots. And you may just want to touch base with them. I know we were very happy with the company. It was also a local company that did that paving.
That work get bid out?
Yes, that work will have to get bid out. So we're going to start looking into that, bringing somebody on to help us develop a plan for that for the bid documents.
So I seem to remember doing paving work recently. Am I just remembering the the Fitzwater stuff, or was there something else we've recently paved?
I'd say it was just before I started here in Fort Washington. Bus loop at Fort Washington, I think was done 4 or 5 years ago. That was the only paving that I'm aware of other than Thomas Fitzwater.
Yes, Jeff.
Maybe this question's, I'll get it. Maybe the question's premature, but if we're doing paving at the 3 schools, would we bid this as one job, or would we bid it as separate jobs, or is that a premature question?
No, I would bid it as one job. What we'll probably do is break out the schools as add alternates or alternate deletes. So we'll have an individual price for each school. So if we do need to make decisions, we know what the price for each school would be, but it would be one package.
The roof situation with Fort Washington, is the membrane delaminating, or are the fasteners failing? What's the
A little more in the background of that. We went back through the records and looked. The roof was put on, we believe, it was 1995. In 2012, they hired the contractor. They went out to bid for it. They called it roof recovery. It was an existing Carlisle roofing system. Carlisle was marketing this project. If you had a good base, that you can put the new fleece membranes on top of the old membrane. The adhesion between the 2 membranes is excellent. They haven't come apart. What's happening is the adhesion between the original membrane and the insulation is broken down. So we're starting to get some uplift during the wind. It's actually pulling away from the edges of the building. So this was actually found we called about a warranty roof leak, and this was found by the warranty company. So we brought Carlisle in. They did some testing on the roof. They actually picked up each section of the roof, identified all the bad spots, which was majority of the roof. We're starting to see this. So we did hire an architect. The architect who's working on the windows for us, Michael Johnson, has been working with Carlisle also on this. This will keep the warranty going for the roof that we did put down in 2012. So we're going to see if we can get some extended warranty out of this. Carlisle is not able to help us with any of the labor, but they have come to the table and said they will take a look at the bids when they come in, and they will work with the contractor to see if they can provide them some of the materials for us. So the Carlisle is standing up to their product. We've been very happy with that.
and roughly, do they have an estimate on how long the repair will be effective?
The repair will actually outlast the membrane. One of the things that Michael is doing as part of the design process is he's trying to bring us up to the new standards for uplift for wind loads on the roof. So any work that's being done, it will be complying with 2015 wind load standards. Basically, the roof itself, when it's adhered, is probably the weakest point will be the decking that it's screwed into when we're done. So we're going to have a very good product.
The Maple Glen windows, is that spot replacement or is that the whole?
At this time, we're looking at spot replacement.
Okay, and that was not on the previous list of capital projects, I think, right?
No,
Yeah.
that was something new to add.
Okay, and how otherwise is this different from what we were planning to do in 2020 on that document?
It's very close. I think I left off some of the, we had originally some floor replacements
Yeah,
on there.
floor and doors, I think.
Floor and doors.
Yeah.
At this time, we're just, the floors, we have, our projects are small enough, they're really going to be held complete under operations, just normal maintenance repairs, some replacements, very small numbers for those at this point.
Okay, other comments or questions? All right, so we're looking at a number now that's, only a little more than half of 2019's number in 2020. I almost hesitate to ask this question, but is that the long-term trend? Or was 2020 just a big year because of Windows at Fort Washington, or is this a small year in 2020?
2020 is about average for what we've been doing over the past 3 years. Of course, last year was a little more with the addition of the air conditioners. So the overall spending is right in line with what we've been doing each year. Mr. Leckman just reminded me also is part of the plan that we've been basing this off of. We have an older capital plan, originally completed by Voteta, updated by Dewey. It's aging. It's not addressing everything. I don't agree with all of it at this point. When it was presented, it was probably very accurate, but where we are now, since it was originally presented, we need to take a look at. Penn State has a building engineering division. We contacted them. There's school districts locally that are using them as well, and what they do is they come down and they will help us. They will go through the buildings. They will help us come up with a plan. They don't, which is nice. They don't have any reason to give you information, but they don't get any business out of it when it's done. If you bring an architect in, they're not designing a project for themselves in the future. Penn State's going to come down and they'll start working with us. And they're going to give us an evaluation and some good numbers of what we can expect, what the life cycle should be on some of our buildings, products. And we're going to make determinations on some of the older buildings with them. They're going to look at some of the older buildings and say we maybe recommend putting money into one building and not another because replacement might be a better option down the road. So these are all the things that they will look at with us. I've had the preliminary contacts with them. We're just waiting for after the holidays. They'll be down this area a little more. Right now they're working with Cheltenham Township, and I believe Central Bucks. Yeah, Central Bucks they're working with as well. So it's nice we have a little group in this area working together. They'll be down in the area more often to work with us.
Okay, so at the January meeting, we should expect, are we looking at a contract with them that'll have timelines and dollars? Is that?
I'm hoping to have a proposal from them by the January meeting.
Okay. All right, comments or questions about that? I'm really looking forward, go ahead, Andy.
The only thing I just want to add is just to make sure we're all clear. So this is a preliminary first look at sort of what we're looking at for next summer, right? Nothing set in stone. We're not looking for approvals. When we have more information about the Penn State, we'll bring that back before this committee. This is just sort of the plan that we're starting to work through as we prepare for next summer and longer term planning.
Great, right. And so this doesn't need to show up on Monday night. All right. So with that, it is time for community input. Seeing no community, I will close community input. Our next meeting of these two committees will take place on January 23rd, 2020 at 6 p.m. here in the Cardinal Room. And so the Operations Committee is adjourned. And okay, so the Operations Committee is adjourned. We'll take a breath. Okay. And move on to the Finance Committee.